Um, so Francis, I want to come to you now, and I want to talk with you about what advice, and like going back to this idea of pragmatic advice, what advice do you have for organizations to really start taking that step towards true transformation, where we're doing that end-to-end change, as opposed to maybe stopping at the idea of changing our existing processes as is?
Yeah, so I'm a massive fan of firstly, you've got to orchestrate the work and understand how work gets done. And it's often, there's a lot of like, well, if we automate this, we should see this value, back to Kieran's point. But then you go back and ask them what kind of quantities of these kind of transactions occur, and there's and how much does it cost to actually execute those processes. There's like, deer in headlights. Nobody really has the answer. So I think if you start orchestrating work, that's the first thing. Once you understand those inputs and outputs and how work gets done, you can start to then break down the silos of these big processes and start automating, what we would call an outcome for a customer. So let's just say it's onboarding the customer. You know that you do a good job, but you could do a lot better job, or your digital native competitors are doing a phenomenal job and you want to get better. So you can start automating just the onboarding process using these new technologies from end to end, and that means that you could do it without human involvement, with AI involvement, or even human involvement as well. But you've orchestrated that process now end to end in the new digital transformation era using newer technology. Maybe, Mike will hate me saying it, maybe eliminating paper altogether in some instances. And then you just pick the next, and that we would cast that as a journey, that customer journey for being onboarded. And then we might pick another journey, and the next journey might be to offer them a new insurance plan, or to pay a claim. Each of these things are customer journeys that they have to undertake to interact with you. And people think digital transformation is so big that they're just not going to do it. We'll never be there. We've stuck with our 500 legacy systems forever. But the companies that are really making an impact are picking specific customer journeys where they want a better outcome for that customer and just getting on and doing it. And you can get on and do it in this little tiny window and leave all your other stuff out there. You're not boiling the ocean and throwing it all away yet. You're interacting, maybe using some RPA to interact with legacy systems that don't have integration points. Maybe you're using APIs where they exist. And eventually, once you've completely digitized one of those journeys and processes, you may find out you get less and less need for integration, and you can start burning to extinction, we're going to use the dinosaur analogy, some of those legacy systems, which nobody really knows what they cost. I use the iceberg analogy. What you see on top, it just looks like, here's my cost, so there's my ROI if I make it better. But underneath is that massive iceberg where the cost that IT have to undertake to maintain the system, pay the licenses, make sure the hardware is updated, make sure all the updates and upgrades and security patches are applied. And then suddenly your ROI as a percentage goes from being what you think is 20% to maybe 1% or even minus 1%. And I think it's that visibility to a process, the desire to improve outcomes, one outcome at a time through each journey, digitize that. And we are seeing the big change around automating individual processes digitally, not just making them more efficient. And I think, Mike, you alluded to that as well. You really are on that platform for change, and you've got to be, because the digital natives are coming up behind you fast, maybe already overtaking to you. And I think that I use the way to drive this is be envious. You probably already are, but which journey do your customers undertake, or your competitors' customers undertake with your competitor, where you're envious is a journey better than your own? And if you spot that envy and you focus on that, you can replace that envy and surpass that envy where your competitors are now envious of you, and treat each journey and customer outcome initially with you being envious of someone else doing a better job than you. And I promise you, if you get on the digital transformation bandwagon with things like low code and elasticity and compute power that comes with it, you will make such a difference to your long-term goals as an enterprise, your board, your shareholders, and everyone else. So